Hi everybody, this is Shannon here on No Shelf Control. Thanks for joining me on the channel tonight. It is May 30th, a Tuesday, as you know, and so all of the new books are coming out for the week. I have my list together of books that I'm very excited about, and this week we're going to do it in one day. So I have 12 books that I'm dying to tell you about, and that's what I'm going to take on this evening. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one on my list is The Celebrants, and it is by Stephen Rowley, best-selling author of The Guncle. And The Guncle is what I am reading right this minute, and I am loving it. So that is one reason that I am super excited that Stephen Rowley has another book, The Celebrants, that is coming out today, and I will be able to dip right into that as soon as I finish The Guncle. So let's learn a little bit more about The Celebrants. May 30th, of course, is the publishing date. That's today. G.P. Putnam's Sons is the publisher, and it is 320 pages. And here's the synopsis. A big chill for our times, celebrating decades-long friendships and promises, especially to ourselves, by the best-selling and beloved author of The Guncle. It's been a minute, or 5 years, since Jordan Vargas last saw his college friends, and 28 years since their graduation when their adult lives officially began. Now, Jordan, Jordy, Naomi, Craig, and Marielle find themselves at the brink of a new decade, with all the responsibilities of adulthood, yet no closer to having their lives figured out. Though not for the lack of trying. Over the years, they've reunited in Big Sur to honor a decades-old pact to throw each other living funerals, celebrations to remind themselves that life is worth living, that their lives mean something to one another, if not to themselves. But this reunion is different. They're not gathered as they were to bolster Marielle as her marriage crumbled, to lift Naomi after her parents died, or to intervene when Craig pleaded guilty to art fraud. This time, Jordan is sitting on a secret that will upend their pact, a deeply honest tribute to the growing pains of selfhood and the people who keep us going, coupled with Stephen Rowley's signature humor and heart. The Celebrants is a moving tale about the false invincibility of youth and the beautiful ways in which friendship helps us celebrate our lives, even amid the deepest challenges of living. So the fact that I'm reading Stephen Rowley right now, I can totally attest to the fact that he is very funny. He really gets his characters and presents them to you in a way that is appealing and humorous, and I'm loving it. So Guncle, the Guncle that I'm reading right now, stands for gay uncle. So these two children in the Guncle, their mother has just passed away and their dad went to rehab, and they refer to their uncle as Gup, gay Uncle Patrick. And so it's that kind of humor that Stephen Rowley brings to a book. And so really excited to see that here. You've got 6 friends all coming back together at Big Sur regularly to celebrate each other in living funerals. But this time, Jordan has a secret. So I can't wait to find out what that secret is, how it changes things, and to see how they play out these funerals that they hold for each other. I think it's a fabulous idea. I think too many times we don't tell people what they mean to us until after they're gone. And the idea of celebrating somebody that you love before they pass away, I think that's a fantastic idea. So really interested in this premise and excited that it's Stephen Rowley who's written it, and can't wait to get into it. So I hope you're excited too. I will say too that this cover is really cool. You can see that they've clearly rented some fabulous house in Big Sur and they're out there toasting each other. What I do think is interesting about the cover, though, is there are only 5 of them here, and there are 6 characters in the book, as we discussed. So it'll be interesting to see why one of them is not represented. Number 2 on my list is The Museum of Ordinary People by Mike Cahill, and he is the international best-selling author of All the Lonely People. I do like this cover. There are all kinds of different people here. They appear to be moving and holding books and checking out and doing all kinds of things, and sort of look like ordinary people. So I think it's a great drawn cover that goes well with the title. This one is from Grand Central Publishing, and it's 336 pages. Here's the synopsis of The Museum of Ordinary People by Mike Cahill. In this pure, unadulterated feel-good and warm-hearted novel, an old set of encyclopedias leads a young woman to a curious museum and one profoundly moving lesson, that every life is an extraordinary life. And that quote is from Kirkus. Still reeling from the sudden death of her mother, Jess is about to do the hardest thing she's ever done: empty her childhood home so it can be sold. As she sorts through a lifetime of memories, everything comes to a halt when she comes across something she just can't part with: an old set of encyclopedias. To the world, the books are outdated and ready to be recycled. To Jess, they represent love and the future that her mother always wanted her to have. In the process of finding the books a new home, Jess discovers an unusual archive of letters, photographs, and curios housed in a warehouse and known as the Museum of Ordinary People. Irresistibly drawn, she becomes the museum's unofficial custodian, along with the warehouse's mysterious owner. As they delve into the history of objects in their care, they not only unravel heart-stirring stories that span generations and continents, but also unearth long-buried secrets that lie closer to home. Inspired by an abandoned box of mementos, The Museum of Ordinary People is a poignant novel about memory and loss, the things we leave behind, and the future we create for ourselves. So I think this sounds really exciting. The idea that she doesn't want to get rid of this set of old encyclopedias, I can totally see myself doing that. Even though they probably have no value and are, ready for the recycling bin, I would be the one who was dying to hold on to them. I'm a bit of a hoarder. I call myself a collector. And then the fact that she finds this museum of ordinary people and becomes in charge of it with the person who owns the warehouse. I'll be really curious to see, how that plays out. It reminds me a little bit of Station 11 and the museum that they put together of things that were left from before the apocalypse. And how they gathered old cell phones and computers that didn't work, and they had this museum of old items. But I hope that this has more to do with the people behind the objects than just the objects. So, interested in taking that one on. That's The Museum of Ordinary People by Mike Gale. The next one on my list, number 3, is called Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe, and it is by Emma Tourds. It is being published by William Morrow. It's 416 pages. And here's the synopsis. In this spellbinding debut novel, 2 estranged half-sisters, tasked with guarding their family's library of magical books, must work together to unravel a deadly secret at the heart of their collection. A tale of familial loyalty and betrayal and the pursuit of magic and power. For generations, the Calatay family has guarded a collection of ancient and rare books. Books that let a person walk through walls or manipulate the elements. Books of magic that half-sisters Joanna and Esther have been raised to revere and protect. All magic comes with a price, though, and for years the sisters have been separated. Esther has fled to a remote base in Antarctica to escape the fate that killed her own mother. And Joanna's isolated herself in their family home in Vermont, devoting her life to the study of these cherished volumes. But after their father dies suddenly while reading a book Joanna has never seen before, the sisters must reunite to preserve their family legacy. In the process, they'll uncover a world of magic far bigger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined, and all the secrets their parents kept hidden. Secrets that span centuries, continents, and even other libraries. In the great tradition of Ninth House, The Magicians, and Practical Magic, this is a suspenseful and richly atmospheric novel that draws readers into a vast world filled with mystery and magic, romance and intrigue, and marks the debut of an extraordinary new voice in speculative fiction. So I love practical magic. I love the idea that these 2 sisters, and we've talked about books here again. So we had the set of encyclopedias in the last book that I talked about, and now we're talking about a set of books that contain magic. So books again, and I love it. But Joanna and Esther are sisters. They've been separated. Their father has now passed away, and they're going to discover this new world. And I just love the idea of that. It does sound a little bit like practical magic to me. So we'll see how that plays out. But really intrigued by the premise, love the idea of world building. The one thing about the synopsis that bothered me a little is it says the debut of an extraordinary new voice in speculative fiction. I don't know exactly what qualifies as speculative fiction, but I usually don't like it. Usually when a book is described as speculative, it means I'm not going to like it. And so I'm curious about this one. I'm hoping that it just means new world building, that it's, speculating on a different future or a different world. But I should really do a little bit more research into what exactly speculative fiction is. But I do find that, generally when I find books with that word on them, it's not up my alley. So we will see. I'm not going to let that deter me in this case, and I hope you won't either. This is Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe by Emma Tours. Number 4 on my list is called Women We Buried, Women We Burned. And that is by Rachel Louise Snyder, author of No Visible Bruises. Wow, she likes a powerful title, right? No Visible Bruises and Women We Buried, Women We Burned. Okay, so the blurb on the cover of this one says, Snyder shows us how to summon the courage to imagine in a cruel and dangerous world. A beautiful book. And that blurb is from Patrick Radden Keefe. This one is being published by Bloomsbury Publishing, and it is 272 pages. And here is the synopsis. For decades, Rachel Louise Snyder has been a fierce advocate reporting on the darkest social issues that impact women's lives. Women We Buried, Women We Burned is her own story. Snyder was 8 years old when her mother died, and her distraught father thrust the family into an evangelical, cult-like existence halfway across the country. Furiously rebellious, she was expelled from school and home at age 16. Living out of her car and relying on strangers, Rachel found herself masquerading as an adult, talking her way into college, and eventually traveling the globe. Survival became her reporter's beat. In places like India, Tibet, and Niger, she interviewed those who had been through the unimaginable. In Cambodia, where she lived for 6 years, she watched a country reckon with the horrors of its own recent history. When she returned to the States with a family of her own, it was with a new perspective on old family wounds and a chance for healing from the most unexpected place. A piercing account of Snyder's journey from teenage runaway to reporter on the global epidemic of domestic violence, Women We Buried, Women We Burned is a memoir that embodies the transformative power of resilience. So another strong woman's story. Sounds a little bit like Educated to me, with the father who sort of takes them off the grid and into an evangelical type of existence. But her life after sounds very different as a reporter who's been all over the world and has written books and articles and stories, of course, about all of those things. And now to tell her own story of what it was like to grow up that way. What it was like to travel the world, and then what it's like to have your own family and return home. So very interesting. Excited about that one. Women We Buried, Women We Burned by Rachel Louise Snyder. The next one is called Goodnight, Irene, and it is by Luis Alberto Urrea. And he is the author of the national bestseller, The House of Broken Angels, which I have never heard of. So that's interesting to me. The blurb on this one says, peaceful, uplifting, and deeply personal. Goodnight, Irene is a story of survival, camaraderie, and courage on the front lines. A beautiful, heartfelt novel. And that blurb is from Kristen Hanna, #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Nightingale. So this is Goodnight, Irene. It is, of course, being published on May 30th by Little Brown and Company, and it is 416 pages. Now, something that all of you may have known that I am just catching on to, there are specific numbers of pages that publishers use when they publish books. So there was the day that we had 4 or 5 books that all had 288 pages, and I thought that was a big coincidence. I'm now noticing that there are specific page numbers that folks hit. And I don't know why that is. I'll be interested to learn more about that. I'm going to have to research that. But 288 is a big number, and I'm noticing that 416 is also a big number. So I'm curious about how publishers pick those numbers, but I'm not running into books that are 409 pages. They're not just the number of pages that they are. They seem to be hitting a certain page count. So that's just something I noticed, and I thought I'd pass it along. So Goodnight, Irene by Luis Alberto Urrea. In the tradition of the Nightingale and Transcription, an exhilarating World War II epic that chronicles an extraordinary young woman's heroic frontline service in the Red Cross. Urrea's touch is sure, his exuberance carries you through. He is a generous writer, not just in his approach to his craft, but in the broader sense of what he feels necessary to capture about life itself. And that's from the Financial Times. In 1943, Irene Woodward abandons an abusive fiancé in New York to enlist with the Red Cross and head to Europe. She makes fast friends in training with Dorothy Dunford, a towering Midwesterner with a ferocious wit. Together, they are part of an elite group of women nicknamed Donut Dollies, who command military buses called clubmobiles at the front line, providing camaraderie and a taste of home that may be the only solace before troops head into battle. After D-Day, these two intrepid friends join the Allied soldiers streaming into France. Their time in Europe will see them embroiled in danger from the Battle of the Bulge to the liberation of Buchenwald. Through her friendship with Dorothy and a love affair with a gallant American fighter pilot named Hans, Irene learns to trust again. Her most fervent hope, which becomes more precarious by the day, is for all three of them to survive the war intact. Taking as inspiration his mother's own Red Cross service, Luis Alberto Urrea has delivered an overlooked story of women's heroism in World War II. With its affecting and uplifting portrait of friendship and valor in harrowing circumstances, Goodnight, Irene powerfully demonstrates yet again that Urrea's gifts as a storyteller are prodigious. And that is a quote from NPR. So, Goodnight, Irene by Luis Alberto Urrea. I love that this is inspired by his own mother's story. I love the idea that she makes friends with a towering Midwesterner who is sort of crass and funny and loud, and that they go by Donut Dollies and drive the clubmobile. But also interested to see more about this friendship and her relationship with Hans, and see if in fact the three of them are able to survive through the war. I just have this terrible feeling that it has a sad ending. I don't know, but I just have this terrible feeling that one of them is not going to make it, at least one. So, but that makes a great story. So I will soldier through, my little pun there, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Number 6 on my list is called Graceland, and I feel like we just recently talked about a book about Graceland. In fact, I know we did. This one is by Nancy Crocier, or Crocier, I'm not sure. Maybe Nancy Crocier. Love this cover. It's got the convertible with the woman with the scarf around her head, traveling up 40 to Graceland. So this one is by Avon, and it is 400 pages. Here's the synopsis. People-pleasing Hope Robinson can't seem to please anyone lately. Not her slogan-spewing boss, not her pink-haired teenage daughter, and especially not her mother, the flamboyant soap star Olivia Grant. Olivia loves Elvis more than Jesus, and now that she's on oxygen, she insists Hope take her on a final trip to Graceland. Unfortunately, that's the one place Hope can't go. 18 years earlier, pregnant and distraught, Hope fled Tennessee with a secret agreement to never reveal her baby's father and never return to Memphis. Olivia, though, has never learned the word no. After she wrangles Hope's impulsive daughter Dylan to drive her from Boston to Memphis with the promise of meeting her mystery father, Hope has no choice but to chase after them. She must stop them before they ambush Dylan's father, exposing Hope's lies, breaking the NDA, and igniting a political and media firestorm. Along the road to Memphis, as the women encounter former soap actors, free-range ferrets, and a trio of Elvis-impersonating frat boys, everyone's long-held secrets begin to unravel. In order to become the family they long to be, Hope, Olivia, and Dylan must face hard truths about themselves and one another on the bumpy road to acceptance, forgiveness, and ultimately grace. I like that. So Graceland and ultimately grace. Somebody did a nice job writing that synopsis. I wonder who writes synopses. Does the author get to? Does the publisher write them? That would be an interesting thing to know as well. So apparently I'm all over the place tonight. So we've got Olivia, her mom, we've got Hope, Olivia, and her daughter Dylan. And they are going to be traveling to Memphis, two together and one chasing behind, to try and find the secret of Dylan's father. And Hope is just wanting to go to Graceland because she loves Elvis more than Jesus, according to the synopsis. So we've got a road trip. We've got multi-generational, 3 women. So I am excited about understanding what's going to happen in this story. I've been to Graceland, been to Memphis as a child, and actually got to see it. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember it being big, and I remember it being, slightly overwhelming. And certainly have family members who love Elvis, probably not more than Jesus, but so I think this will be a good one. It's by Avon, so it's probably kind of light. My experience with Avon as a publisher is that their titles tend to be a little lighter than some of the other publishing houses. But I think it's going to be funny, and I think it's going to be a romp. So I'm in. That is Graceland by Nancy Crochier. The next one, number 7 on my list, is called Big Gay Wedding. Can you get better than that for a title? And it's by Byron Lane. And the cover here has 2 men holding hands, one in a full suit, one in a vest, and both wearing bow ties, and they're in matching shades of light blue. So I can't wait to read more about this wedding. Big Gay Wedding is being published by Henry Holt & Co., and it's 336 pages. Here's the synopsis. An unashamedly proud, loud, and hilarious novel about a small town that's forever changed by a big gay wedding. Perfect for fans of red, white, and royal blue, and the gunkle. There's the gunkle again. 2 grooms, one mother of a problem. Barnett Durang has a secret. No, not that secret. His widowed mother has known he was gay for years, thanks to an unfortunate internet search history when Barnett was in high school. The secret is Barnett is getting married at his mother's farm in their small Louisiana town. She just doesn't know it yet. It'll be an intimate affair, just 200 or so of the most fabulous folks Barnett is shipping in from the heathen coasts, as Mom likes to call it. It's no secret that the wedding will be the biggest, gayest event in town's history, but what no one in town can predict is that after the whirlwind, glitter-filled week, nothing will ever be the same. Big Gay Wedding is an uplifting book about the power of family and the unconditional love of a mother for her son. You're all invited to the biggest, gayest wedding of the year. RSVP as fabulous. Thank you very much. I love that. I love the idea that we're going to see what impact a big gay wedding has on a tiny small town in Louisiana. And I love the idea of a mother going to bat for her gay son. So I'm definitely intrigued by this one. I think it's going to be a great story, and I can't wait to read it. Number 8 on my list is called Everything All at Once, a memoir, and it is by Steph Katudal. The cover is the Big and Little Dipper. One of the dippers, and I don't know what the other 2 constellations are. I'm not good with my constellations, but I know we've got one of the dippers and then 2 more constellations. So I'll be interested to see what this has to do with the story. This one is published by Harper One, and it is 240 pages. Here's the synopsis. An intimate and evocative memoir, one woman's experience with the universality of grief and the redemptive power of love as she endures her husband's 84-day battle with lung cancer. When Steph Katudal met her husband Rivs, she thought that the love, stability, and warmth she shared with her husband had finally dispelled her pent-up anger and grief over the loss of her father and her faith. But when Rivs became ill and was put into a coma at the height of the pandemic, the painful memories of her childhood, watching her father die of cancer, came flooding back. Written with lush lyricism, Steph's account of how this crisis forced her to confront her past is raw and illuminating. Her father's death wrecked her faith in God and jump-started a decade of rebellion, including running away from home and living out of a van at age 16, struggling with alcoholism and delving into drugs to ease her pain. Sitting by Riv's bedside, she grappled with the memories of the past and the uncertainties of the future while reckoning with the unknowns of her husband's illness. Rivs would endure a grueling 84 days in a medically induced coma, eventually undergoing chemo for a similar illness as the one that stole her father. Like Cheryl Strayed's Wild and Michelle Zauner's Crying in H Mart, Everything All at Once is a heart-wrenching and ultimately uplifting reflection on resilience and a powerful reminder that we can find healing no matter how broken we are. So this sounds like a really sad one. She loses her father and her husband, and has to deal with all of the emotions that are coming up, as her husband is struggling with cancer, reminding her, of the experience she had with her father. So it sounds like it's going to be incredibly well written, and like it's going to be very, very personal. So I can't wait to read it. That's Everything All at Once by Stephanie Catudal. The next one on my list, number 9, is Esme Cahill Fails Spectacularly. And I'm curious, we've got Esme Cahill Fails Spectacularly. I feel like ever since Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, this is a standard titling sort of mechanism that we use. Woman's name is something something. And I just feel like there are a lot of them, but this is Esme Cahill and she fails spectacularly. And that is by Marie Bostwick, New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. The blurb says, "This is Marie Bostwick at her storytelling finest." And that is by Christy Woodson Harvey. And she wrote The Wedding Veil. So this is from William Morrow Paperbacks, and it's 368 pages. From the author of The Restoration of Celia Fairchild comes a novel about the meaning of family and the places we call home. If you love Southern summer fiction authors like Mary Alice Monroe and Christy Woodson Harvey, you'll love this delicious novel about family, friendship, and finding your true path in life. Esme Cahill thinks she has failed spectacularly. Fired from her New York City publishing job, divorced from her husband, and possessing little more than a broken-down car and a pile of unfinished manuscripts, she drives home to Asheville at the request of her late grandmother, Adele, who had begged her, just before she died, to return to the place she grew up. There, she discovers the once charming lakeside retreat run by her family is sliding toward financial ruin. So with the help of her grandfather, George, estranged mother, Robin, and a traveling chef, Dawes, maker of the world's best grilled cheese sandwich, they set to work. In the attic, Esme unearths a trove of museum-worthy art quilts sewn by Adele. Piecing together the inspiration behind them, Esme discovers a forgotten chapter in her family history and her grandmother's untold story, that of a gifted artist who never received her due. This is an always emotional, sometimes humorous, very human novel of what it means to be a family, the ties that bind us together and the unintentional hurts that can rend us apart. And along the way, Esme learns that failure can be the first step toward the life you're meant to find. So again, we've got multiple generations. We've got mom, daughter, grandmother, although grandmother has already passed in this story. But it sounds like she's going to take something from her grandmother's life and apply it to what's happening in her life right now. And I do love a good Southern summer fiction author. So I am intrigued by this story and interested, and what am I supposed to make of the traveling chef Dawes, the grilled cheese sandwich guy? What does that have to do with anything? But here it is in the synopsis. So, and look, we've got this gorgeous cover with the woman and books again, laying in the boat, just chilling. So I will be interested to see how Esme combines her story with her grandmother's to get through what she's going through. So that is that one. Number 10, so we have 3 more. Number 10 is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. And the blurb on this one says, clever, dark, and hopeful. A love letter to reading and the power that childhood stories have over us long after we've grown up. And that quote is from V.E. Schwab, who wrote The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So I know a lot of you love her, and so hopefully her endorsement here will mean something to you. I also love the books on the cover and the moon shining through the books, and the little sort of castle down here, or chateau and lighthouse. So we've got books again. I'm always in favor of a book with books in it. The publisher for this one is Ballantine Books, and it's 304 pages. Here's the synopsis. Years ago, a reclusive, mega best-selling children's author quit writing under mysterious circumstances. Suddenly, he resurfaces with a brand new book and a one-of-a-kind competition, offering a prize that will change the winner's life in this absorbing and whimsical novel. Make a wish. Lucy Hart knows better than anyone what it's like to grow up without parents who loved her. In a childhood marked by neglect and loneliness, Lucy found her solace in books, namely the Clock Island series by Jack Masterson. Now, a 26-year-old teacher's aide, she is able to share her love of reading with bright young students, especially 7-year-old Christopher Lamb, who was left orphaned after the tragic death of his parents. Lucy would give anything to adopt Christopher, but even the idea of becoming a family seems like an impossible dream without proper funds and stability. But be careful what you wish for. Just when Lucy is about to give up, Jack Masterson announces he's finally written a new book. Even better, he's holding a contest at his home on the real Clock Island, and Lucy is one of the 4 lucky contestants chosen to compete to win the one and only copy. For Lucy, the chance of winning the most sought-after book in the world means everything to her and Christopher. But first, she must contend with ruthless book collectors, wily opponents, and the distractingly handsome and grumpy Hugo Reese, the illustrator of the Clock Island books. Meanwhile, Jack, the mastermind Masterson, is plotting the ultimate twist ending that could change all their lives forever. You might just get it. So this feels like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to me, but for grown-ups and about books. And so that excites me. I love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I've read it. I've watched all the movies, all the versions of the movies. My son was in the play. He played Grandpa Joe in the 6th grade. So I love that kind of thing. It also reminds me a little of Ready Player One, where they're competing for, in this competition that the mastermind has put together in video games, but this is about books. So this one just sounds incredible to me. I love it. I'm excited about it. I don't know that I need to say anything else. She's going to try to adopt this little boy, but she doesn't have any money. I have this feeling that somehow she's going to find a way to win this prize, or not win it, but somehow manage to make this little boy part of her life. So I'm excited. That one is called The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. Number 11 on my list is called Once More with Feeling, a novel by Alyssa Sussman. And she is the best-selling author of Funny You Should Ask. And I have never heard of her or Funny You Should Ask, so I'm really excited about this. The cover is a little quirky. It's got a man and a woman on it, some microphones, some spotlights, and a couple of cats and a keyboard. So, I don't remember what the book was, but I remember a couple of weeks ago, one of the Aardvark books said, contains a cat. So apparently if a book has a cat in it, you really need to know. So much so that they will put them on the cover for you. This book is from the publisher Dell, and it is 416 pages. Here is the synopsis. Then, Katie Rose is living the dream as America's #1 pop star, caught in a whirlwind of sold-out concerts, screaming fans, and constant tabloid coverage. Everyone wants to know everything about her and her boyfriend, Ryan Leneve, the hottest member of the adored boy band Crush Zone. Katie loves to perform, but hates the impossible demands of stardom. Maybe that's why she finds herself in the arms of another Crush Zone member, Cal Kirby. Quiet, serious Cal, who's always been a good friend to Katie, is suddenly Cal with the smoldering eyes and very good hands. One unforgettable night is all it takes to blow up Katie's relationship with Ryan, her career, her whole life. Now, Kathleen Rosenberg is okay with her ordinary existence and leaving her pop star image in the past. That is until Cal Kirby shows up with the opportunity of her dreams, a starring role in the Broadway show he's directing, and a chance to perform the way she's always wanted. The two haven't spoken since the joint destruction of their careers, and each of them blames the other, making their reunion a tense battle of wits and egos. Katie reluctantly agrees to the musical, as long as she keeps her guard up around Cal. But rehearsals are long, those eyes still smolder, and those hands are still very good. Despite everything, Katie can't deny the chemistry between them. Is it ever a good idea to reignite old flames? Especially if you've been burned in the past? A former pop star finds herself back in the spotlight, along with an old flame from her past. In this Friends to Lovers meets Enemies to Lovers romance from the best-selling author of Funny You Should Ask, the sensational TikTok romance. I didn't even know there were TikTok romances, but apparently, Funny You Should Ask, this author's first book, was a TikTok romance. So now she has a second romance about a pop star and how she blows up her career, becomes an average citizen, and then gets asked back to do a Broadway musical. So I'm curious to see how it works out. Love a good romance or rom-com, and this sounds like it has the makings of a pretty good story. So I will check that one out. I hope you will too. It is Once More with Feeling by Alyssa Sussman, and the synopsis said nothing about a cat. So why these cats are on the cover, I can't say, but I'm sure we'll find out if we read the book. All right. The last one on my list, number 12, is called Laid and Confused: Why We Tolerate Bad Sex and How to Stop by Maria Yagoda. And this is from St. Martin's Press, and it's 256 pages. And yes, I've gone out on a limb on this one, so I hope that you will humor me. A refreshingly honest, deeply researched, and frequently hilarious deep dive into the cultural crisis of bad sex, as one brave sex columnist recruits the counsel of coaches, psychologists, pro-doms, and peers in the pursuit of pleasure. Far more alarming than the millennial sex recession, the phenomenon of young people having less sex than previous generations, is that we're in the middle of a bad sex epidemic that all generations are suffering from. Despite major advances in sex education, positivity, and technology, we haven't moved the needle on better. We're still quietly enduring unsatisfying sex, whether that's resigning ourselves to the same 3 positions we secretly hate, or lying when our Bumble date asks if we're close after 15 seconds of oral. We've been trained to optimize everything except our own pleasure. For journalist Maria Yagoda, bad sex was her villain origin story. After going viral for a column calling out bad sex on her college campus, she launched a career as a sex columnist, earning a global following for her wit, vulnerability, and expertise in her popular Vice series, Sex Machina. But even as a professional sex writer, most of the sex she was having landed somewhere between passable and In search of understanding, she consulted sex therapists, psychologists, dominatrixes, and sex toy creators, as well as young people of all genders and sexualities, putting her own sex life on the line, from hiring a sex coach to attending a masturbation meditation Zoom seminar, in order to pave a new path forward. In the vein of Come As You Are for the Trick Mirror audience, Laid and Confused presents a fresh, funny, and compassionate analysis of our current sexual moment and offers research-based tools that will empower readers to craft the deeply pleasurable sex lives they deserve. So, I know, it's a little out there, but this is Maria Yagoda, Laid and Confused: Why We Tolerate Bad Sex and How to Stop. I have read Come As You Are. It's by Emily Nagoski. Really enjoyed that. Thought that was a great sort of treatise about women's sexuality and how it works and how it doesn't work sometimes. Really enjoyed that book. And this one sounds really intriguing as well. It sounds both fun and informative. And I think that should be true about sex. It should be fun, and we should know a lot about it. I mean, it's something we do a lot of in our lives. We should be informed. So, you know, you've heard me say before that I have a very sex positive family, that I have raised my son. We have raised my son with a very open outlook on sex. And so I'm always interested in learning more, and think that this should be a great read. So I hope you'll give it a try. I hope you'll get something out of it. And if you do, by all means, leave me a comment. Let me know. All right, so those are the 12 books that are coming out on May 30th today, and I am excited about all of them. I think it's an incredible list. You know, some weeks are better than others. I think this is a very, very good week. So really intrigued by a lot of those titles, and I hope that you are too. If you enjoyed this kind of video, please click like and subscribe. It helps me to know that you are interested in what the new titles are coming out week over week and hearing which ones I think are exciting. So I will be back with lots more single book reviews, your weekly list of new releases that are coming out on Tuesdays, some bookshop tours, and some videos from Japan while I'm away. So I hope that you will continue to come back and watch all of the things that I'm putting together for you, and we can talk more things bookish again soon. Take care. Bye.